IVM.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the Vishal Gondal show. Today I have a very interesting guest, a guest who's called Tall and Dusky. And of course she's tall and dusky. From being an introvert to breaking all shackles, to walk tall with her head high. Today I have somebody who is been a TEDx speaker. She has spoken on many forums, and she focuses on a very interesting topic, something which not many people like to talk about, but everybody has questions and curiosity about. We have today on the show Pallavi Barnwal, an intimacy coach and a sex educator. Pallavi has started this journey on literally breaking so many barriers. And today we are going to explore how and what got Pallavi to this point. So once again, welcome to the show, Pallavi. Looking forward to our interaction today.
Thank you, Vishal. I think Goki has been a steady companion in this journey of breaking all the barriers. So I'm really looking forward to share a part of my life with you on this platform. Yes.
Before we go to breaking barriers, I want to start with this very interesting story. Right in the middle of the lockdown, I had a long chat with Pallavi. And, like we were all stuck in this lockdown in our houses, in cities, and wherever we were. But Pallavi was having a great time because she was literally in the middle of nowhere in this beautiful village in Uttarakhand. So please tell us, how did you spend your lockdown?
So I went there for about 15 days before the lockdown, and I was supposed to come back just after the day of the lockdown. And
which city or which village is this? What place is this?
It was Dharamshala in Himachal. And
Dharam. Of course, everybody knows Dharamshala.
Yes, it's a village it's a quaint little village in Dharamshala, and I frankly could not experience what the lockdown was for me, because when I came back, it was already things have started moving. So I didn't know how it feels to be locked down in a house. Being a village, it was a very different experience altogether, as in, you would do housework, and the villagers, they have a very simple life. They do farming, and they milk their cows and they chit chat. Okay, this is what they do all the day. So I was like, okay, here I am chasing deadlines and this and that. And I think it gave a very new perspective where I learned to balance things and not be really stressed about work. So now I'm like, when I came back, I think what I took from that village was not being really, judging yourself that, okay, you have to be like, there are so many startups and everyone is like, okay, raking in numbers. And sometimes you feel left out, or sometimes you feel like you have to measure up. I think now I'm more comfortable in my skin. That village has taught me.
And tell me something, you had gone to the village originally for like a week. What was your plan to be there for?
Yeah, 15 days. So I was kind of exploring a social project, which was about rural education project. So I loved Vishal, the stay in the village, because, it was so close to nature, like being in the mountains. And it's a very different feeling to go as a tourist and to stay there. It's very different. When you stay there, it's a very different feeling. You connect to the local culture, you connect to their traditions, you connect to their dreams. It feels like you are one of them. Yeah.
That 15 days, which was planned to be like a tourist, ended up becoming how long for you?
3 months.
3 months?
Yes.
And in that 3 months, what was your first reaction, that how will I survive here for 3 months? Or who took care of you, or how did you manage there for so long?
There was a host, through his introduction, I came there. So thankfully, there was no problem of staying as such. And I was really charmed by their simplicity. I mean, they accepted me. In city, no one knows that, okay, who are you? Because there's so many people living in a society, like thousands of people. But the village, there were just 100 families. So everyone know everyone. Like I ended up, say, if I have to find a child, I will go from house to house and say, do you see this child? Have you seen this child? So they will say, oh, he was seen here, playing here. So you don't need a mobile. You don't need a RFID to track your child. It is all connections. It is all social connections. So I actually realize the power of social connections in a small community like a village. Yeah.
And what was the news about COVID? Was there any COVID there? Were there any cases at all?
Oh, I was the outsider, so everyone was so freaking out about me. Like, okay, I'm the only one who has came recently, and they were like insisting that she must get tested. And like for a moment, I felt like I'm an Italian. That time, like Italy was really bleeding, and I felt like I'm an Italian because no one. I mean, this was something I felt like, okay, this is India, and I'm still an Indian. But for them, I was totally an outsider. So there was a scare because they are not literate. So they really can't be like, unlike cities where you are accepted because everyone is educated and they don't mind other people. Everyone was like, okay, we got a call from DC that they checked about my whereabouts, but they got to know that I came here 15 days before the lockdown. So technically I crossed that 2-week period of being infected. So, and other than that, I mean, people just can't give up socialization. So they are very, very isolated to the world. Like they knew COVID is happening, but no one actually gave it a concern that, okay, I have to wear the mask. No one was wearing a mask, and there were hardly any social distancing. But the point is, like, they hardly went out of the village. They're farming and they're like cows, everything, their shops, everything was in the village. So they had very less interaction with the main city.
So clearly, you're not somebody who's new to getting into new situations and different situations. You grew up not in one of the major cities. You were in Jharkhand, and where did you grow up? Tell us a little bit about your hometown.
It's a township. It's a steel city, Bokaro steel city. So I was very lucky to grow up in a city where the education, because it was all of them were working families, all of them were professionals and engineers and doctors. So even though from a small city, and when I came to Delhi, it was a cultural shock for me. But I think. Just in a steel city, they give a very high importance to education because you don't have your dad's money. Like, you don't have a dad's money to splurge. So you need to earn your own money. So they always like pushed me for education. That is something I took from the small city, that you have to struggle. It is not given to you. You have to like really claim it. You have to go and,
And it's interesting, right? India has few of these cities. There is Bhilai. There is Jamshedpur, of course, we all know about Jamshedpur, and then there is Bokaro, and they are all cities centered around a steel or an iron and steel plant. So what were your early memories, and were your parents working for the steel company, or how was it for you?
Yeah, so my father was a manager in the steel plant. He was actually in charge of all the strikes. So if there is a steel plant, there would be labor strikes. There would be very frequent labor strikes. So he was the one
in charge of strikes.
So he was the one who has to get the labors back. So he was in HR. So, and he was
okay. So he was in charge of breaking the strikes.
Yeah. Yes. So, he's a very people person. And I think I grew up looking up to my father for these. Like professionally, I looked up to my father as, he was very unconventional in the sense that he would deal with people all the time. So I liked that fact of his. And growing up, I think we had these big houses, and it was never it was not congested. And I think education was something that I took even from my peers, because most of them were like Christians. There were a lot of Christians because it's a joint collaboration between Russia and the Indira Gandhi government back then. That was a joint collaboration. So we had a lot of Russians. So it was good. It was good, yeah.
So literally in the middle of nowhere, you had a lot of Russian friends also over there?
So we didn't make friends because I mean, we always felt like, there was this color divide. Like that color divide was very apparent there, that, okay, they are someone who are like, even as little children, we would know like, okay, we are brown people. Now I'm kind of coming to terms with this, because this has been like Black Lives Matter. We have these racism, issue of racism. And so they did not do anything, but somewhere we always kind of treated them as like, oh, they are something very different. Like they are superior than us. As little children, we felt that. We were made to feel that.
Oh, and I'm clearly right. I mean, you are talking about what, the late 80s? Is that late 80s, early 90s? Is that
90s,
the time frame?
Early 90s.
90s, yeah. early
Yeah.
90s. And clearly this was the time when it was Fair and Lovely ads everywhere, and this whole thing of trying to celebrate fairer skin, etc. And I know that you did face some kind of issues being
Yes.
at this whole dusky complexion.
Yes.
Of course, nowadays people are seeking people with dusky complexions in all the movies and all the ads, but that was a very different time. So how did you go through that?
Oh, I'm just, I wonder when I look back that as a 13-year-old girl or 12-year-old girl, I ended up believing all that, that nonsense that was like thrown on my, shoved on my face, that, okay, indeed, there is some problem with me, that I'm like, I was very convinced that there is some problem with me. And I would not even say that, okay, it's God given. So I would say, oh, I'm not responsible. Even if I felt that, okay, having a darker color means that there is some problem. So, and it was all around, like, when there would be talks of marriages between my uncles, so they would always look for a fair girl, and if the girl is fair, then everyone would appreciate her. So there was no appreciation or emphasis on education. Like when it came to my uncles, it was like, okay, she's beautiful and she would be homely. So I thought, okay, you need to be beautiful for that. And it was so entrenched in my mind that, okay, I can't do anything about my color. I was really depressed. I thought I was ugly.
Well, and as a 13-year-old, clearly this has a big impact on you. And you were again one of the, like moving from a small town in India to a big city like Delhi. How did you make that decision? And how did, what was the reaction of your family?
So I was supposed to become a doctor, because in small towns you either become an engineer or you become a doctor. If you're a boy, you will become an engineer. If you're a girl, you will become a doctor or a teacher. I couldn't clear my medical entrance, but then I decided I will not wait. I will not waste another year, and I will do my graduation. So my father was very unhappy, and he said, जो करना है करो, तुमको जो करना है करो. So I kind of got my tickets. He booked my tickets. I came on my own to Delhi. It was very difficult as a 18, 19-year-old. I was like very scared that how would I. And then there was my uncle. So coming to a big city, it was like, okay, I remember for the first month I could not even cross roads because I was so scared just seeing so many, cars like speeding on the roads. Like in our town, there were hardly few cars, like 2 or 3 cars. And here it's like all the big trucks and everything. So then even I realized that, okay, you kind of money was really important, because in smaller cities, money was earned only to the extent that it helps you live a comfortable lifestyle, but there was no chase. Like people can't earn money beyond a certain point of time. But here I could see the class difference. I could see that, okay, there are landlords and there are tenants. I was never a tenant. Like my father had his own government flat. So now I realize, okay, being a tenant, then you can be evicted. You have to pay rent on the 5th of every month. All that realization started sinking.
And where did you stay? Because Delhi, of course, even now people don't think it is safe for women, but you went there all alone in the late 90s, when clearly it was an even worse city than what it is today, I was told. So how did you manage Delhi, and were your parents not concerned that अरे हमारी बेटी को हमने दिल्ली जैसे शहर में भेज दिया?
हाँ, तो पहले तो ये था कि मेरे अंकल थे, and I completed my schooling in 2001. So 2001 I reached Delhi, and then there were no phones. There were only DTC buses. So yes, it was like you don't have a metro. You have to, and of course, like every other girl in India, like 1/3 is the official statistics of sexual harassment. Like 1 out of 3 women have been sexually harassed. So I was that 1 out of 3, and I got again groped in DTC buses, and I was lured, and unwanted touching. I have seen all of that as a student, as a young student, and I was very resilient. I mean, it didn't break me as in, okay, I had to run away from it, but I would keep thinking about it. It stayed in my mind. Like those experiences, I just did not, I didn't forget them with time. Like, okay, now it was a thing of past, because I know, okay, why it happened. I think that experience came in handy, here, like now when I'm working in this space.
So in early 2000s, you're in Delhi, you don't have any friends there, right? You were like new to the place itself?
I mean, see, again, there was again a class divide. Being from Bihar and Jharkhand, it was said, okay, are you a tribal? I mean, they believe that I'm a tribal.
Oh God. And then you went to Miranda College, right?
Yeah.
Miranda School, sorry. And how did that's supposed to be like a very high-end school, right? How did you get
College.
in there? High-end college, yeah.
Yeah, so I did well in my schooling. So I think Miranda, they have a less, like, unlike today when they talk about 99% cutoff, and I don't know what kind of outrageous cutoff that is, but back then
99% cutoff.
yes, I mean there's so many jokes around it, like DU cutoffs. Like some people say that it's 100% is the cutoff. So I think back then it was like I was good in sports. So I had applied, like, although I didn't use that, but I applied in the sports quota. I was good, like I was like tall, so I would do this long jumps.
So which sport were you involved in?
So I long jumps.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what was your jump? Did you create any records and stuff?
I got some certificates. I got a state level certificate. I represented my town. So I think, yeah, so that came handy. And I think college was a great experience in the sense that it was a girls' college. So I like from
and I know, again, just to get a sense, how tall were you compared to the other girls or whatever in your college or school?
I was the tallest. Everywhere I was the tallest. Like I think now, I mean, even in my workplace, I'm the tallest. Like I'm 5'9". So it's like, and I think it is in my college that I realized that that's an asset. Like it adds to my personality. Otherwise, throughout my childhood, I would really crouch my shoulders to be able to be with, like, be seen as one of those cute little girls. I was very tall. So again, that was made to, I was made to feel like, अच्छा इसके लिए लड़का नहीं मिलेगा क्योंकि कहाँ से इतना लंबा लड़का मिलेगा. So I was like, everything came down to marriage. Like everything boiled down to marriage.
So you ended up in Delhi. You studied at Miranda. What were your, because that was also the time when I think this whole, issues around women's participation in the society, right? I mean, in India is one of the few countries where the total working women is less than 18% in the whole country. While in a country like China, I would say there are possibly more women working than men. And overall, there is a much smaller representation for women in the workforce, etc. And like you just said, right, everybody is basically saying, "Acha, tumhari shadi kab hogi?" Right? The basic construct for a woman is, okay, you are learning and studying and all that, but great. Finally, घूम फिर के हमको बस आपकी शादी करानी है, and then you go ahead. And the same thing happened to you, right? You did get married. At when was that, and how did you get married?
I mean, it is such an amusing story, Vishal. At 25, I felt like I've crossed my biological clock. I felt like I'm getting older and I would not get a groom. So after 25, like, oh my God, I'm already 25. I have to get married. And I was working in a startup back then, and the founder, he came from US and he said, why are you so much after marriage? Go and see in US, the girls, they hardly think about marriage before in their early 30s. And you're just 25.
And which startup was this?
This was Deskera. Deskera, they are into IT products. Deskera.
Okay.
Yeah. So Pune.
So you were, and what were you exactly doing for them?
I think I was doing all, because it's a startup, and I got hired in 2009 when there was a recession. So there was a very high pressure on the workforce. Like you really cannot give salaries. They couldn't give the salary. So I ended up doing everything. I've taken calls on the reception. I have monitored the attendance. I have hired people, like everything. I think that was a great learning experience because I was not kind of, some people get fixated in the roles that this is my role. And I was like, okay, it was a challenge because every 2 or 3 months they would say, okay, abhi yahan pe koi nahi hai, isko bhi manage karna hai, acha isko bhi karna hai. So I became very flexible and I think adaptive when it came to that startup culture.
And then when you told your CEO that you are leaving this startup to get married, that's what you literally told him.
So they were to send me on a on-site assignment, Singapore, for 2 years. And I thought, okay, if I go there for 2 years, my boyfriend will leave me. Like 2 years, he's not going to wait for me. So I made this decision at the end moment, like when they kind of processed my visa application, everything. And I said, I'm not going because, my marriage, I fear that my marriage will not happen. And that didn't happen anyways. But he was very shocked, like, okay, what kind of girl she is? She is given this career opportunity and she's leaving it. So, and after that also, yeah, I mean, it was a very big priority in the sense might not be a boy would not think like that अच्छा मुझे पहले शादी करना है, but as a woman I kind of had that conditioning.
And not just conditioning it, everybody you met was like आपकी शादी कब हो रही है, अरे 25 साल हो गए, ये क्या हो गया, वो क्या हो गया, right? Literally that was the scene with you, right?
Yeah, yes. And you know, there was no precedent, Vishal. Like if I look up to other women in my house, none of them were like, okay, हमें करना है, अच्छा ठीक है. If they have to do either their doctorate or their masters, they would do along with marriage. So शादी के बाद भी, in fact, I like okay, लड़के की family बहुत liberal है क्योंकि वो ना job करने देंगे या तुम पढ़ाई कर सकती हो. They are so liberal. They allow their, you know, like liberal का मतलब ये है कि something that is so natural for me. I mean, it was seen as like a good quality in the groom's house that they are letting the girls study. So yeah, it was all around me. I think I did not took it just on myself. I think as a woman, even now, you know, even now when I was started working, the girls would come and मैम हमें resign करना है. और मुझे भी कहा जाता था कि आप इंटरव्यू में पूछो कि लड़की शादी के बाद resign तो नहीं करेगी ना अगर शादी she's of a marriageable age. So I was very like, okay, this is such a gender disparity. Why I have to ask this question? But they would do it. Like, हाँ, शादी हो रही है तो you have to move to a different city. So, yeah.
And then finally, when did you decide to get married?
I was so eager to get married. I was very eager. I was like, okay. And I think this is where I erred because I felt that, okay, marriage is supposed to work like all marriages work. Now, when I got married, I was, okay, marriage is, sometimes it becomes a transaction between two families, like in northern Indian small states, there is dowry involved, there could be accusations and so many things like, okay, there could be politics, there could be, like in my family, I was very, as a child, you know, my parents would not involve me in the affairs of the elders, कि ये बड़ों का मामला है. तो मुझे ना बड़ों का मामला पता ही नहीं था कि क्या होता है. अभी मुझे शादी के बाद समझ में आया कि overnight I became an aunt and everyone, like I became an aunt to a person who is just a year younger than me. Like he was my devar brother-in-law. He was 25 and I was 26 and my mother-in-law said कि भाभी माँ के समान होती है. मैंने कहा ये तो मुझसे साल भर ही छोटा है, अभी मैं इसकी माँ कहाँ से बन पाऊंगी. तो वो इतना सारा expectations suddenly, you know, I was like, oh my God, I started feeling something.
And were you married in Delhi itself or you went to some other city?
So I was working in Bombay back then and my husband was also in Bombay and we got married in our hometown.
So you then settled in Bombay?
Yes.
So how was it, you know, for you to be in Bombay, right? Bombay is this fast city where nobody cares about somebody else. Not like Delhi ki, you know, ye ho raha hai, wo ho raha hai. So what was your comparison between Bombay and Delhi given that you lived in both places?
You know, the first 6 months after getting married, though we were just living on our own, first thing was again, it was so difficult to find a nice clean house in a good locality in your budget. So being, you know, we were both were early in our career, so we're not earning enough, like as in we could afford a 30,000 rent flat in Goregaon. So to find a house was a hustle. Like so many houses, like we looked for so many houses. Finally, we got a decent house. But then again, the daily commute. I think, you know, these are the challenges. Like when there is no social support system. Like there are cramped trains, local trains. You have to just get in and you have to report office on time. You have to finish the work, come back home. And this is when I was not even a mother then. I don't know how working mothers kind of manage because I was so tired that I really told my manager that can you change my shift so that I can at least get a seat in the local. Because I would be standing for 45 minutes and it was like, okay, yahan se someone is pushing, someone is doing this. So she said, no, that's not possible. So yeah, I mean, it was like, okay, you have to, you know, it's like, it's a struggle for survival in a big city.
And, you know, given that you've been a fighter all your life, right? You first fought your way out of your small town, went to Delhi. You then came back to Mumbai, where you started struggling and surviving. But then something big happened. And I think that was the turning point in your life. Could you talk a little bit about that?
I think so when I got married, I had no idea about marriage. I thought marriage is wedding. Now I say that marriage is something that starts after wedding. So I was very happy doing all the shopping, going to the honeymoon. And after that, I realized that, okay, I hardly like it. In the arranged marriages, even typically now, girl meets boy in 10 minutes and they say, Acha, hame pasand hai. And then they say that, okay, you can explore, but then this has already been decided that you are getting married. And it's very difficult to, annul a decision in the caste, like community. You can't annul it. Like once you have given your word, you have to stick to it. Mm-hmm. So I kind of got an idea that might be this marriage will not work because the man was, I think, my in-laws, they're very controlling, and he was more on their side, and I could feel that. But then my father said that no, अब तो तुमको शादी करना है क्योंकि हमने announcement कर दिया है और ये हो गया है और वो हो गया है. तो मैंने कहा ठीक है चलो शादी कर लेते हैं, हो जाएगा, ठीक हो जाएगा, मैनेज हो जाएगा. But eventually 5 years it was a transaction, like as in it was more about the household chores ki theek hai abhi राशन खत्म हो गया है या ये टेलीफोन बिल है. It was more like this. It was no as Indians we are more into that domestication. The marriage is more domesticated. It is not about you actually build a connection. It's more like I could see a lot of Indian houses. Hopefully now the new generation, they are marrying on their own terms. But when I look back at people like my school friends, it's more of a domestication where they kind of, they manage things together. They raise their children together. But there is that conversation is missing between the spouses. There is this connection is missing. Plus it's a family affair. Like there would be like, all the families, they would be intervening into the matters of the couple. So that happened for 5 years and I was like, okay, I can't do anything. This is how it's supposed to happen. But I had a very strong feminist background in Miranda. I read a lot of literature, and somewhere that world said that, okay, you need to have your own voice and not all marriages are supposed to work. It's okay. But it took me a lot of time because in India, marriage is supposed to last a lifetime. Till death do us apart. So I was like, no, I gave up 5-6 years. I said,
but I don't know. I don't know if you saw the famous show now on Netflix, Indian Matchmaking. And there is this matchmaker, Seema Auntie, and her most favorite dialogue is adjustment to karna padta hai. So when it comes to adjustment, you clearly didn't think that is the right way to do of marriages, right? And today, if you really see people who are seeing that show and they are literally seeing that arranged marriage and all that which is happening. So what is your, and clearly in your case, you tried to adjust, as you said.
Yes.
But finally, it didn't work out. So what is it that didn't work out, and what is your message to people who are currently either single or looking at arranged marriages, or your suggestion is ki bhaiya shadi mat karo, aise hi khush raho. So what is your take on this given your experience?
That's a very pertinent question. It's a very relevant question. What didn't work was definitely, there was no pre-marriage counseling. See, there are two individuals. Marriage at the time, any marriage includes two different individuals, two different personalities coming together. So their differences will always be there. Always be there in all marriages. But what we do is we don't appreciate those differences. We think that there is something wrong if I say that I'm not a carbon copy of my husband, or I don't like the same things as my husband does or my wife does, because then it means that we are not compatible. No. I think one thing was that I had this very fairy tale notion of the marriage. Fairy tale notion, not more of a pragmatic, like real kind of notion, understanding that yes, marriage will involve conflicts. And even I think the families, it was more like, see, we were young people. We hardly knew anything and we were just exploring. So I think when there is a gap, there is a generation gap, you should not impose things, on the younger generation, because it was too much for me. And at the beginning of the marriage, I think it's the very crucial period, because then you're just forming the roots. Like when you actually kind of, shrug it off, like you kind of, usko, अगर आप उसको बिल्कुल तभी हिला देते हो तो उसका वो जो रूट है वो बहुत ही इट्स वेरी वीक. सो आई थिंक द बिगिनिंग फेजेस आर रियली क्रूशियल. And we were two different people. I mean, I realized that I was more interested, I was more intellectual, I was more entrepreneurial. And my husband was someone, he was like, okay, he was mama's boy था, वो थोड़ा ज़्यादा था mama's boy. और Indian mothers का भी एक ये challenge क्या होता है कि with men, they actually train their daughters, they kind of raise their daughters with the values कि तुमको किसी और के घर जाना है तो तुमको adjusting होना है. But with men, they still have this, like many men, I would not say all men. I'm sure you would be a wonderful husband and father, Vishal. But yeah, especially in North India यहाँ पे बहुत ज़्यादा patriarchy है, तो उनको men को ये रहता है कि the sense of entitlement, like you know, I'm the man of the house. तो वो sense of entitlement मेरे husband को भी था. And as a now I'm an educated woman. If I had been a homemaker and I was like, okay, ठीक है, पति परमेश्वर है, पर मेरे लिए पति परमेश्वर का कॉन्सेप्ट सिर्फ थ्योरेटिकल था. आई वाज रेज्ड इन अ वेरी डिफरेंट वर्ल्ड. सो देयर वाज दिस कॉन्फ्लिक्ट एंड फॉर अ लॉन्ग टाइम आई वाज स्ट्रगलिंग दैट ओके व्हाट डू आई डू. शुड आई बी दैट पतिव्रता नारी और शुड आई बी दिस वुमन हु स्पीक्स हर वॉइस. सो टू अलाइन दीज, फाइनली रियलाइजिंग दैट नो, I think it was a mistake because I jumped into the marriage due to the fear. I didn't took enough time to explore. He was a different person.
Mm-hmm. And how easy or difficult was it for you and the family to accept divorce, right? Because that itself is a problem in Indian society.
How do you get these questions? I mean, I'm like, you're actually asking those questions, which is like so important. Even when I see that, okay, how difficult it is, very difficult. They were like one thing I was told that
well, you are forgetting that you are on the Vishal Gondal show, and that's what we do. We ask you questions which people want to know.
I agree. I mean, it takes right questions to get right answers. So I think, yeah, that's a very powerful question because this question is also social mirror. When I heard that question, I say it's not my story. It's the story of many women and men also. So one thing, yes, social stigma on divorce is very, very high. And that's the reason why a lot of people stay in unhappy marriages. My entire family stopped talking to me. But then I was very clear that this marriage is not going to work and I'm not going to live this marriage because of my parents or because of if I'm not happy. And so that was like, okay, I have to prioritize my life over what other people think that this is socially unacceptable.
So are you saying that there was literally a point where your parents and your family said that do not divorce, continue in this. If you divorce, we are going to disown you. That was the situation.
Yes. Plus, they were kind of trivializing emotional abuse. So they said कि मारता पीटता तो नहीं है ना उनको, तो देखो उनको मारा था, तुमको तो कभी किसी ने तुम्हारे हाथ नहीं उठाया. मतलब the scars on the heart are not seen as the same as the scars on the skin, which is even the scars on the heart were also very very excruciating. बहुत painful था वो मेरे लिए. तो इमोशनल अब्यूज का कॉन्सेप्ट नहीं है सोसाइटी में आज भी. मेंटल हेल्थ इज अ प्रॉब्लम. मेंटल हेल्थ गोज अनएक्नॉलेज्ड बिकॉज ओके नो वन कैन एक्चुअली सी मेंटल हेल्थ. तो ये सब challenges थे.
So you went through this hard time and of course you took this decision given that you are a strong woman. But most people don't do this, right? They continue in these terrible marriages. And we now know that there is infidelity. And this is not just about men. I think even women are, we keep hearing about so many cases of, what is going on in the society. So what is your suggestion to people who are right now in this? Because some of them are like, listen, I can't do this, my family, etc. So how do you deal, or what is your recommendation for those people?
I think we only get one life and you should live your life for yourself and not for the society. So please have that courage. Sometimes, yes, a lot of women are financially dependent. So I personally know a lot of women who are financially dependent, who have 2 kids. But I've also seen financially dependent women where they kind of see marriage as a comfort zone. It's a convenience. Basically, marriage is also social convenience. You get a lot of things. You get that financial support. You get that someone to, back up. But then at the end of it, you need to see if you want to survive with the breadcrumbs. I said, no, I need the meal. I need the full meal. I can't be surviving with the breadcrumbs. So I kind of said that, okay, I deserve more. I cannot settle for less than what I deserve. Mm-hmm. I deserve respect. I deserve understanding. I deserve a companion who is progressive. Now, like they say that, अच्छा, ये तो बहुत ज़्यादा expectation होता जा रहा है. But I think, it's all a matter of grooming. Like I groomed myself to reach here. So why not the other person?
And my question is that, like you say, right, you don't just break it off, right? You do try and you do, so did you not, or did he or you did not try anything? Did you meet anybody professional, or did you seek any help?
I mean, it is very rare for a couple to seek therapy, but I even did that. I mean, and it was just like, okay, he said कि तुमको कुछ problem है, you are always anxious, you are always complaining, so you better see a doctor. So I said, okay, चलो मैं जाती हूँ. So it was more like, अच्छा मेरे दिमाग में कुछ problem है. But it was, see, it takes two to tango. So he was kind of not acknowledging his involvement in the whole, but I took it like, okay, ठीक है, चलो मैं जाती हूँ. So I went to a mental health therapist. And then she said, अच्छा 12 classes का package करना है. I was ranting for first day. I was just ranting. And then she said, अच्छा ठीक है, अभी 12 दिन का classes है, 12 दिन का classes आपको sessions करने हैं और 25,000 रुपए लगेंगे. मैंने कहा 25,000 रुपए में नहीं खर्च कर सकती. I was like, okay, I didn't do that. So we did try, but I think we were very naive that time. We were like, it was more of a theoretical. We were not prepared even for marriage. Marriage is an institution. We kind of associate it like, okay, it's a Bollywood drama. It's a Bollywood fairy tale story. Raj meets Simran. तो वो चीज जो है उसकी beyond क्या है marriage में? Our parents would always shelter us. Like my parents kind of more or less sheltered me कि अच्छा उनके क्या problems थे. अभी मुझे पता चला बाद में कि उनके भी बहुत problems थे. And my mother
No, but isn't this also a cliche, right? I mean, just to take that Bollywood angle, right? The fact that the mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law don't get along, there are movies made on it, there are TV series made on it. So it is nothing new. The fact that, woman wants to do something and man is not trying to do this. I'm just saying that these are nothing new. These are all, if you distill 20 cases of, unhappy marriages, there are only 5 or 4, 5 things जो सब में common होता है, जो सबको पता है. तो इसके बाद भी why are people not able to see through this?
I think the comfort zone, like sometimes people get accustomed to neglect. People get accustomed to ill treatment. कि चलो ये ऐसा ही होता है. और I think in US they are more demanding. You need to demand. I mean, see, from the very childhood we are told to be obedient. अच्छा बच्चा क्वेश्चन नहीं करता है, क्वेश्चन नहीं करना चाहिए, बड़ों की सुनना चाहिए, मतलब ना नहीं बोलना चाहिए. You should not say no. We have never been like. There is such, I actually met this very senior psychotherapist, and he said that, lack of self-esteem is such a big problem in this entire country, whether it comes to my body image.
No, but if you take the US example where, I mean, I don't know what number, it's some 80% divorces, right? Some ridiculous like number there. So there, because of the other extreme, the problem in the society is very different. There are, broken families, kids who don't know who their parents are. I'm just saying that US is certainly not the best example of the society at the same time, where divorce rates, like I told you, are 80% or 90%. And while India is the other extreme.
Yes.
So is there anything which is in the middle, because clearly, right, when you have two people, there are bound to be differences, there are bound to be challenges, etc. And at times, some people are able to live through these differences and work out, some people are not. Traditionally, in Indian families, somehow people used to continue, like I said, with the situation, but now that is changing.
Yeah.
So do you see this, do you see a midpoint somewhere?
So, yes, I have actually been part of certain communities in US where they were like, these are the couples who I did some courses on marital therapy. So basically it was a support group. So what I have found there is people are far more accepting about, their emotions and feelings. In India, emotional repression is very high. You really cannot express yourself. You are always told to suppress and to pretend, because I tell you an example. So I was reading this interview of Barack Obama and Michelle Obama, and she said that she and Barack went to a therapist in some years of their marriage, there were some problems. Now, if the president of the US, the first lady of the US, she's so open and she's so accepting about the fact that, okay, they went and saw a marital therapist. But tell me, in India, which celebrity has actually gone ahead and said this? Because the moment they say that we have been to a marital therapist, everyone will start judging. It will become, okay, people, media will start talking about their marriage. So they're like, people are very fearful. They are not able to seek help. They're not able to seek support, even when it comes to the choice of life partner. So I think what the best practice would be is to, confrontation is important as to, are you happy with the choices are you making? Like, I would not say happiness as in like you have to be always smiling, but being like, okay, it's a relative, it's.
But that's the funny part, right? And I'm sure you have heard this and I have heard this, and I also, that marriage is something that जिसने नहीं की वो भी पछताता है और जिसने की वो भी पछताता है, right? So there is nothing like, somebody who's happily married or happily unmarried. There is a problem in both situations. Happiness is nothing to do with marriage is the bottom line. It's about you. You could be happy in a marriage or you could be unhappy in a marriage. So the question is not around the marriage. It's about you, which is fundamentally what the challenge is. And I think that's really what I comment about you, right? So while you did not have your relationship work, a lot of people, go through this and then they forget it and then they do something else. But you decided कि नहीं यार, मुझे कुछ करना है इसके लिए, and then I am going to help fix this. And then you started doing, I don't think so people even heard about intimacy counselor, ऐसी कोई चीज है किसी को पता भी नहीं था. And then sexual educator. I mean, India में मतलब ये सब चीजें itself is like scandalous कि ये क्या हो रहा है. So how did you decide to take these absolutely outlier kind of courses, and what was the reaction once again of your friends and family of you getting into something like this? And how did you just wake up tomorrow and decide I'm going to learn this, right? ऐसा कौन सोचता है ये उठ के, right? I mean, people can become.
मेरे फादर के लिए डिवोर्स वाला ही शौक इतना बड़ा था कि मैंने उनको बोला, मतलब उनको पता चला कि मैं अभी सेक्सुअलिटी में भी जा रही हूँ, तो ही वाज लाइक, ओके, आई डोंट नो दिस व्हाट दिस गर्ल इज अप टू. ही वाज लाइक, ओके, उसको करने दो जो उसको करना है. तो वो मेरे लिए बहुत अच्छा था कि ही वाज इनडिफरेंट. He was not supportive, but he was indifferent. The rest of the family, they again as well like judgment, and they stopped talking to me. In fact, they said कि नहीं, हमारे बच्चों को नहीं मिलना है. मतलब our kids can't meet Pallavi because she will leave a bad impression और ये सब, मतलब ये सारा शुरू हो गया था. But I think, I got a very phenomenal response from my readers. People started coming up with their stories.
No, but I'm just saying, first, how did you decide to do this course? I mean, out of the blue, ऐसा career choice कौन करता है, मतलब, that's what I am thinking.
हाँ, I think one thing led to the other. So it was a day-to-day journey जहाँ पे I remember I was a writer. So as a writer, we write about our stories. So मेरी story में मेरा sexuality एक हिस्सा था कि I had a sexless marriage, then I had a relationship after marriage, where I kind of discovered that, okay, I have those sexual desires as a woman, and I was completely desexualized in my marriage because I thought कि अच्छा बच्चा हो गया, so my duty is over, like the purpose of sex is over. So I had no sex with my husband, and I think that also kind of it had a negative health effect on my body. I was like very irritated because sex also has health benefits, but now again, like we didn't have it, and I still hear that a lot of couples have sexless marriages, or it's like rare. It's never like something that you initiate and you consciously enjoy. It's more like, okay, sometimes you get the urge. Like I got a story that, okay, my wife has sex with me once a month when she has the urge, but then it's nothing. So, people kind of take it as something which is, so I was dealing with it but the thing with me, which was different from other people, was I was blessed with.
So once again, you said you had a sexless marriage. What does that actually mean for a normal person? I don't.
So scientifically, if a couple has sex less than 4 times a year, then they have a sexless marriage.
4 times a year?
Less than 4 or less than 4 times, like once in 3 months. Then it's a sexless marriage.
Okay.
So I had no sex for like 5 years in my marriage. There was no sexual relationship between me and my husband. So I thought वो मेरे अंदर भी था कि dirty चीज है, गंदी चीज है, बच्चे के लिए चाहिए, किसी तरह बच्चे के लिए कर लो. And I still hear this. A lot of couples reach out to me in their 40s and 50s, and they say that the wife has no interest in sex, and men have. Even women come up with this reason that, okay, हमारे husband का नहीं है, libido match नहीं है. But I couldn't talk about it for 5 years with anyone. And then after my marriage, I entered into a relationship with a man and I explored my sexuality. I was like, oh my God, am I the same woman who had no sexual desire? Now I have like, I'm like, I would like to use the word, I was so horny. तो मतलब ये मुझे लगा कि ये क्या हो गया. तो फिर and I enjoyed that phase. I loved that phase. I was like, oh my God, this is a very new world. And that was, the man was more experienced. He was senior. तो फिर मैंने, then I compared these two phases and then I said, okay, I need to talk. मतलब वो शायद, maybe it was something as a divine intervention of what I would say. I decided to talk.
And this was after your divorce or before your divorce?
So I separated. So again, I couldn't make terms with infidelity. Like I couldn't, though even I was married that time, but I was like separated and I was introspecting. Should I finally call it quits? But after that affair had happened, I said that, okay, now I don't say it's a matter of ethics or not. It's a gray area that you have a relationship outside marriage. But then I was taking like, nahi, mera affair ho gaya, matlab meri marriage to khatam hai. ये तो final nail in the coffin है कि मेरा affair हो गया है. तो then I decided to walk out.
Correct. And of course, what you just talked about are things which nobody talks about, especially in India. Of course, Western society, people are, at a different level when it comes to all these things. So how did you, of course, learning about this and doing the courses, but then how did you start marketing this and asking people to come to you for advice? This is again, because the only thing I know about this, that there was this column which used to come in one of the newspapers of one Dr. Vatsal or whatever, I forgot his name, Dr.
Yes, Mahinder Vatsa.
Yeah, Mahinder Vatsa, and they were all these stupid, like, people used to just read that to laugh. That, I'm attracted to my class teacher and this, and, that was the only one little
Can I use a balloon as a condom?
No, I'm just saying that, that was the only one column, I think, in the entire India, where people used to write letters. And I used to always think, it's अच्छी में किसी ने लिखा है. I used to literally think that the newspaper guys are making up these questions and putting it.
और सब लोग पढ़ते थे. I remember मेरे घर पे एक मैगजीन आती थी and as a kids we were like curious कि अच्छा वो एक पेज है ना, उसमें कुछ समस्याएं आएंगी, कुछ वो शारीरिक समस्याएं, वो इतना highlighted पेज होता था कि we would actually look for that page in the print magazine कि अच्छा ये पेज में है. We would just read it.
And in fact, the funny part was that the way sexuality is talked about is Gupta Rog, and like when as a kid, I was like, what is Gupta Rog? And for people who don't know Shresht Hindi, Gupt means secret, right? Gupt is secret.
Yeah. Guptang.
Guptang. So basically, this entire thing was around, and it always looked like that, it is, it was definitely a big societal problem at the same time in India, because given that I was told that India is one of the highest places where you watch porn, so clearly there is a lot of, and here you are, you launched your career as a sex educator. How was that, and what was the first reaction of people, and how did you get your first, customer to come and take your consultation?
So I have this personal trait. I don't think much before I act. I've now started thinking. थोड़ा मैं सोचती हूँ, but I'm someone who takes decisions on the go. कि अगर मुझे लग रहा है तो मैं करूँगी. तो ये चीज मैंने सोचा मुझे बात करनी है तो मैं करूँगी. So I started writing and then I started getting stories in boxes. बहुत थोड़ा creepy भी आ रहा था. बहुत सारे creepy men थे who thought that okay, this is a woman who is like really, she has this hunger for sex, and I was like, okay, I'm not that. But I think when I started writing, I started a blog. मैंने एक blog शुरू किया था. उस blog में मैं अपनी stories लिखती थी. And because I had this huge treasure chest of stories right from my adolescence, like okay, my first crush on my teacher, as you said, that column में भी था, मेरे को भी crush था. फिर even sex life of my parents, my grandparents never stayed in the same room. So I would question कि अच्छा क्यों है ओल्ड कपल्स भी डिसेक्सुअलाइज हो जाते कि वो एक कमरे में एक बिस्तर पे नहीं सो सकते. बहुत सारी चीजें, मतलब मेरे अंदर क्वेश्चंस बहुत थे. सो आई वाज लाइक मोर लाइक अ राइटर हु वाज क्वेश्चनिंग थिंग्स व्हिच नो वन वांटेड टू आस्क और नो वन वांटेड टू. एंड देन आई टॉक्ड अबाउट masturbation. So I said, okay, I did masturbate once in my marriage. And it created a lot of ripples. Like, oh my God, this got shared and suddenly women started reaching out. I don't know what happened. something, and then I realized, okay, ये कोई बात नहीं कर रहा है, and I'm talking, and these people feel now they want to reach out. So I started getting a very good response. Like every day I would get like almost 5-6 messages, and these 5-6 stories. तो मुझे लगा कि अच्छा ये तो इतने स्मॉल लेवल पे ये हो रहा है, लेट मी डू इट, लेट मी परस्यू इट पैशनेटली एंड सी व्हाट हैपेंस. सो देन चीजें होती गई.
And right now, what is the, given that now you are talking to so many people, do you have any common advice for people, or do you think what are the top 10 problems which everybody faces? Because not everybody is going to seek help, but are there any things which are common trait which in everybody?
Okay, I think people live for the society, not for themselves. तो मैं कहती हूँ अपने लिए जीना शुरू कर दो पहले आप, ठीक है. आप अपने आप को समझो. समझना मतलब अपने आप को समझना भी मैं कहूँगी वो बहुत बड़ी बात, because it's a lifelong process to understand you and come closer to the real you.
But it is said, right? It is easily said than done. कि अपने लिए जियो, right? I mean, the reality is that you have a society, you are dependent on, a lot of people live in joint families, not everybody has their own house. So this thing of अपने लिए जियो is a good slogan. But how does this translate into practical life?
Okay, so by to say, I mean, even I have a family, like I have a son and I have a mother, I have my parents. So I would say अपने लिए जीना मतलब कि, see, I compared myself in my marriage where I was exclusively living for others. कि उनकी हर चीजें वो है कि मैं where am I as a woman? No one actually, sometimes even in Indian societies you don't know the woman's name. She's like, अच्छा किसी की माँ है, किसी की चाची है, फलाने की चाची है. She's not even called by her name. तो मेरा कहने का मतलब ये है कि marriage doesn't, if you are in a relationship with your spouse, then you need to encounter the hard facts. Like I always say, if you need a hard life, you have easy conversations. If you need an easy life, have hard conversations. So hard conversations with your own self, thinking that, okay, are you happy with the choices you have made, or are you living? See, I did one poll on LinkedIn and I asked them question ki the primary reason for living in marriage is love, children, social judgment, finances, and any other. So a lot of people actually voted for children and social judgment. So wo jo factor hai ki we are together not because we want to be together with, but there are so many duties around it. So I think it's a very vicious circle. The way it's kind of entangled, it has sucked away the happiness of marriage and life out of marriage. So I think to summarize, I mean, if I have to give you 3 key points. So one thing is have that hard conversation, which you feel you are avoiding. People don't want to talk about it. They kind of run away from talking about it because they think, acha, ye to, it means my marriage may break. So pehli cheez to hai ki have those difficult conversations which are really required.
Yeah, and at this point in time, I want to give a disclaimer that if your marriage does break after listening to this podcast, please do not blame us. We are only giving you the real fact. This is for the audiences who are listening.
yes, T&C. तो पहली चीज तो ये है कि हाँ आपको वो कॉन्वर्सेशंस करने होंगे. कॉन्वर्सेशंस आर नॉट अबाउट कि आज डिनर में क्या बनाना है. कॉन्वर्सेशन इज अबाउट आर वी टॉकिंग टू ईच अदर और नॉट. आर वी स्पेंडिंग इनफ टाइम विद ईच अदर नॉट. इज आवर मैरिज ऑल अबाउट आवर किड्स और इज आवर मैरिज ऑल्सो अबाउट अस. So giving space is important. Space is so essential in the marriage. Like it is not about enmeshment. Marriage का मतलब भी नहीं होता. Marriage is still.
But so Pallavi, just one thing on this giving space, right? And because I have other couple of friends, men don't understand this concept of what is it by giving space. What is it that giving space actually means?
See, giving space is about like if say if your husband is away, say a woman's husband is away for some maybe an evening with his friends, so she must not be calling 5 times ki ghar kab aoge. I remember I was with this man and his wife called almost 3 times in an hour, and every time I was speaking and he was like doing shh. वो मुझे कर रही थी कि his wife should not know that he is sitting with a female friend, and he was like हाँ मैं आ रहा हूँ, मैं आ रहा हूँ. I was like, oh my god, ये तो कुछ ज्यादा ही हो गया. So that kind of like you're not owning the other person. You need to understand that you're not owning the other person. It is very difficult because we do want to own them. We're like, no, you're mine and I'm yours. So you owe me and I owe you. वो वाला ownership वाला हिसाब थोड़ा सा ये challenging हो जाता है in a long term. So be secure. It comes from that inner security that I am secure in myself. I have my own friends. I have a good career to look forward to, and I'm not dependent on that man to, deal off my insecurities. तो इनसिक्योरिटीज में लोग, जैसे मैंने आपको एग्जांपल दिया कि दिस इज जस्ट 2 weeks बैक वेयर शी वाज relentlessly calling that man. तो ये स्पेस का मतलब ये होता है.
And what's the third one?
So first thing I think as communication, 2 is second space, and third is life goal. Life goal is about, see, if मैरिज जो है पहले एक इकोनॉमिकल यूनिट होता था. इट वाज लाइक ओके डेवलप्ड एज एन इकोनॉमिक यूनिट टू सस्टेन द सोसाइटी. नाउ वी हैव अटैच्ड इंडिविजुअलिज्म कि मैरिज का मतलब है आई चूज माय पार्टनर. मैरिज का मतलब है इट इज ऑल इनकम्पासिंग. you get your best friend, you get your confidant, you get your soulmate, everything. Like, people have kind of aggrandized the marriage. So I would say, what is the shared meaning? What is the meaning of your marriage? You two have come together for a certain goal. So I was talking to this man today, and he and I are casually seeing each other, and he's like, okay, he's a social entrepreneur, and I connect to him on that level. I understand that वो चीज नहीं आएगी हर किसी में. मतलब you are an entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur, but not everyone can be an entrepreneur. But you need to have some shared meaning from your marriage. Your marriage should not be about kids. It should not be about finances. It should be something more than that. Maybe you have cultivated something that joins you together. It could be shared values. Okay, what are the values, life values that you have? Like, life has to be some meaning beyond your work. कि आपका 9 to 5 job है, क्या आपका life का meaning वही है या उससे ज्यादा कुछ है? तो वो meaning marriage में होना चाहिए.
And the best part of everything you said is that this is exactly the conversation you never have in India. I think this is really missing. I think we talk about all these mantras, and we are all worried about how expensive is the lehenga and the whatever the clothes in the wedding, and what are the gifts which are being given, and how many people are invited as guest list. But what you just said is clearly what is missing. And of course, right now, as we know, there is even another layer to marriage. And there was recently this law which talked about interfaith marriage and love jihad, and this whole conversation where we are already talking about a complication of people aligning, and then suddenly we bring in a different layer. What is your advice to people who are suddenly thinking about interfaith marriages, or if you are getting married to people in different religions or different parts of the country, or even different a lot of marriages between Indians and Americans and Indians and whatever, UK, Australia, everywhere, right? I mean, Indians are traveling everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, यहाँ पे तो ऑनर किलिंग भी हुआ है, और कास्टिज्म तो है ही है कि अभी भी people want like it should be same caste. Now we are talking about different religion and maybe different country. So I think one is like, if you're financially empowered, I always tell that, okay, women have to be financially empowered if they have to take their own life choices. So that gives you that, that support that, okay, you can fall back on your own. You are not dependent financially on your parents to, seek approval for that.
No, but no, that's the whole. I started by telling it, Indian women contribution to workforce is only 18%.
Yes.
So unless that changes, you will never have, right now only 18% women are having some kind of financial background.
Yes. So, I mean, we can't do anything about it, like, because I would say that that financial self-reliance is very important. This is the first thing. I mean, I have been able to take a divorce because I was employed. I could actually fend for my own. If I'd been dependent on my husband, I could have never done that. Mm-hmm. Like being dependent on my parents or my husband. I could take this decision because I was empowered. I was making my own money. I was secured. I had a good career. So I think that is the first thing if you really want to be entitled to a life based on your own terms. Yeah.
Got it. So financial security definitely is important, but it does not mean that because you are financially secure. In fact, a lot of times that becomes the key problem in the marriages, right? I mean, if you look at some of the bigger issues also comes around this.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to sharing expenses, कि अच्छा monetary कई बार ये होता है कि अच्छा ये पैसा है. I know, I mean, it does happen. So coming to the context of inter-religion marriages, I think our parents are also like fearful of the society that okay, what will everyone say? They are fearful like okay, I will lose my son because I'm already conceding to his demand. So it means that okay, that the new girl would she would kind of influence the son because she's not from our own community, so she's not going to share my own values. Plus it's like okay, a lot of parents still feel that okay, they should take the decisions for their kids. I remember I was dating this man and his parent was so annoyed that okay, why you didn't consult before you decided to make it serious. So I think they kind of they don't feel the children as grown up adults. Like in US, what I have learned is that children, when they attain the age of 18 or even like in their teens, the parent treat them as the same level. India, it's like okay, it's still pampering, like अच्छा तू मेरा लाडला बेटा है, तू मेरी लाडली बेटी है. तो वो एक adulthood नहीं देते उनको, subscribe वो नहीं करते कि अच्छा we don't ascribe adulthood to our kids. Like we think okay, he's a kid, he doesn't know well, I know better because I have seen so many years. तो वो चीजें हैं जो कि एक social norm है इसमें.
And but again, coming back to this whole thing of America में वो adulthood मिल जाता है, but then the other problem in America is at the age of 16 the kid is thrown out of the house and they have to find their own jobs or do whatever, right? So the society itself is different. The Western society and the Indian society is fundamentally different, structurally.
Yeah.
And the problem is whole issues are coming when a lot of these ideas are trying to get intermingled. Do you believe that?
Yeah, I mean, see, even we are mimicking West. Hindi is a national language, but हम English में ही बात करते हैं. तो workplace language English है. We are wearing Western clothes. We are mimicking Westerners, and but culturally we are still attached to those old school ideas. जहाँ पे premarital sex is considered wrong. The concept of live-in is considered wrong. I would say that every couple should live in before getting married. This is my recommendation to everyone. It will solve half of the problems because then you will know it will work or not in the long run. Sexual compatibility is...
Well, again, let's say that we are going to give you disclaimers because tomorrow people not say कि हमारे podcast में सुना था तो अभी this is going to become live-in before marriage. You are going to change fundamentally the concept of engagement and courtship if you want it, right? But that's the funny part, right? See, marriage is a contract for society, correct? And you are saying that don't care about society, which is why, if you don't care, then why do you need to get married? Marriage is itself done for society. So conceptually, these two things itself contradict each other.
मतलब मैं ये नहीं कहती कि don't care about the society. I'm saying take what society has to offer. अगर society ये कह रही है कि society still says कि premarital sex is wrong, but people are having premarital sex. Homosexuality 377 section जो decriminalization हुआ था पहले था कि अच्छा एडल्ट्री माने, अभी तो एडल्ट्री भी हो रही है. बहुत चीजें सोसाइटी मना करती है बट हम करते हैं क्योंकि सोसाइटी इज क्रिएटेड फॉर मासेस. इट्स बेसिकली अ मास अरेंजमेंट एंड दैट it is in our own benefit that okay, it offers us a certain security and I would say kind of legal commitment. Marriage is a legal commitment, so you don't run away from your responsibilities. So I think I would say that it's a great institution. Marriage is a great institution, but the way we have kind of defined marriage as between two families, and sometimes it's like okay, it's being one, मतलब दो जिस्म एक जान वाला जो concept है वो हमको समझना पड़ेगा कि it's still two individuals trying to live with each other. It's it's a work in progress.
And coming to the work in progress, of course, you have a long career ahead. You are already doing courses and you're doing so many sessions. In fact, you are also hosting your classes on Goki itself.
Yes.
What are your plans going forward? How do you want to take your message of, this whole concept of intimacy and what is right as far as there's no right or wrong, what is ideal, let's put it that way, when it comes to relationships? How do you plan to take this to the next level?
So there are 3 C's. The 3 C's are content, community and consultation. So building a content which is talking about the real life problems, not giving a gyan ki ye karo, wo karo, but really addressing the issues. And it could be that sometimes there is no solution, but it leaves you with a question. So content hai, jisme we are trying to curate the relevant content that is helpful in marriages. Community is essential because even though you read a lot of content and you at the end of the day you can't talk about it. So even now in my page, like people interact and people give their thoughts and they engage and they are able to talk. They're able to put their opinions on those posts. So creating that community of people. And thirdly is consultation, where I'm launching some courses on intimacy, courses on conflict management in marriage. So if you have a conflict in marriage, how you can actually address that conflict. So that's a course. Second is on importance of sex in marriage. So a lot of conflicts can be addressed by sex. So you just don't need to resolve, you need to have sex. तो वो चीजें हैं कि वो हमको एक बेसिक हमारा जो एक एनाथीमा है कि नहीं हमको बात नहीं करना है. Sexuality I think is a key in ensuring marital success, where people think अगर मेरा marriage में कोई issue है तो मेरा sex life भी on standby. And I actually, a lot of therapists have said it's the other way around. If you have a good sex life, you will have less of issues. So it's strange, yeah.
No, but again, how come there is not enough information on this, right? There is nothing out there which talks about this, especially in the Indian context. There are a lot of blogs and things, but these are all Western concepts, which I said that you can't apply those concepts to India because our society structure itself is very different.
So I am trying to see the best, first thing is my life was also my own personal laboratory. I tried everything on my own life and saw that, okay, what if it has worked? And few of my friends also, I had those discussions with my friends, and I speak to a lot of people. A lot of my time is spent when talking to people, engaging with them and understanding, and okay, I see that, acha, haan, ye kaam karega, ye work kar raha hai. People are looking for this. So my conversations also help me understand that I'm on the right path in terms of it's a trial and error journey, because again there is no set precedent. कोई पहले किसने किया नहीं है, but it's also an opportunity.
The most interesting part about what you just said is the only solution to all problems is have sex, and this is exactly what Osho said long time back. And I know you are also a Osho follower, or you quote Osho a lot.
Yes.
So what is it that you like? Because this whole concept of Osho, I know after seeing the documentary Wild Wild Country, we got a little bit more clearer. But in India, the image the image of Osho in India is that there is a place where it's nothing but free sex. Everybody goes there and you wake up in the morning and you go to sleep and you have sex with strangers. And that is what Osho was. Of course, it is much different. And I'm just saying that the common person thinks about Osho in this way.
Yeah, I think Osho was a radical. और कई बार हमें वो रेडिकलिज्म चाहिए होता है अपने एक स्टेटस को ब्रेक करने के लिए. सो दिस वाज मोर ऑफ ही काइंड ऑफ चैलेंज द स्टेटस को कि एज इज जो स्टेट है सेक्सुअल डिप्रेशन है, और रिलीजन कहता है कि नहीं, सेक्स इज डर्टी एंड सेक्स इज ओनली फॉर प्रोक्रिएशन. एंड so I think he challenged those norms, and people were looking for that breather, and he it went into a very different direction altogether, where he tried to set up a commune. तो मैं कोई कम्यून तो नहीं बना रही हूँ यहाँ पे ओशो की तरह, but I think I like to ask uncomfortable questions. I like to ask questions that are uncomfortable. So
and how do people react to this, right? When you tell people, all these things, people are not used to hearing these kind of statements that have sex or do this, or why are you not doing this, or why don't you do this? How do you deal with people on all these subjects?
Yeah, it's a mixed reaction. Overall, it's a very positive response, in terms of people seeking out help and taking services and सब प्रोफेशनल हेल्प. तो वो पीपल आर ऑल्सो गेटिंग वार्म्ड अप, क्योंकि पहले क्या था ना विशाल, जैसे अगर आप सेक्सोलॉजिस्ट सोचो तो आपको एक या तो ट्रेन में जाते हुए एक हाकिम दवा खाना दिखता था कि शीघ्र पतन के लिए आप संपर्क करें, या तो कोने में एक येलो बोर्ड होता था, तो येलो बोर्ड होता था शीघ्र पतन, लाइक सेक्सोलॉजिस्ट मीन शीघ्र पतन. Intimacy is a fairly new concept because the world is changing.
And then there are these there are all these people sitting with all kinds of jadi booties,
Unani Hakim.
Exactly, yeah. And even now Man Force and all these medicines and, for the performance enhancement medicines are the highest selling even today in India, it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, there is TikTok, there is porn. Someone said that like 90% of the content is porn. But like, even in terms of sex consumerism या sexist होता है, sexualized content होता है. तो it's a start. I mean, I would not say it's a slow start, but as you said that, yeah, I'm still young and I'm like really I'm very positive about the kind of content that I'm bringing, because I myself experienced like, wow, it was an eye-opening experience. Wow, this is like sexual desire. I'm doing this course on sexual desire, and they talk about desire in a way like, oh my God, it's like about senses. It's about even Kama Sutra, Vishal. Why are we forgetting? Like, it's the legacy. So Kama Sutra is something which has already been written. It's not a book on sex positions. It's not at all a book of sex positions. So Kama Sutra में ये लिखा गया है कि it is written in Kama Sutra that for a couple to have stable family life, they need to have a good physical life together. And if a couple has a stable family life, then the society will be stable. So Kama Sutra attributed sex. It was one of the shastras, जैसे कि Vedas होते थे या और भी मनुस्मृति होती थी, वैसे ही Kama Sutra was considered as one of the shastras. So I think we don't need to look any further, but go back and revisit Kama Sutra. Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that. So Kama Sutra actually is part of Vedas.
Vedas, I mean, it was considered the same league. जो league होता है ना, it was not
same league. Okay, yeah. It is certainly not part of the Vedas.
No.
Okay, yeah, sorry. I was like,
Shastras. So Kama Sutra is a part of Kama Shastra. So Kama Shastra में रति रहस्य आता है, आनंग रंगा आता है, Kama Sutra आता है. So there are like 13-14 treatises which is a part of Kama Shastras, and they have kind of linked Kama with Shastra. So Kama Shastra is a complete treatise. So it comes in Shastra.
So what did you really like about Osho's teachings? Have you like read a lot of books on Osho and stuff?
I read a few. I listened to his discourses, and I read his book From Sex to Super Consciousness. So all he was saying in that book was, you should not be held prison to your sexual thoughts. Like, 90% of the sex is happening in our minds. It's how absurd is that? Like, you should actually like, a lot of people are fantasizing, thinking, in the daytime about sex. They're watching porn. It's a lot of mental consumption we are doing. Sex is supposed to be a physical activity, but then men say that, okay, women are not ready. Women think of sex as a gift that they need to give to their husbands, or they would withdraw sex if they're not happy as a punishment. So, you kind of play around with this very natural, very playful force. So Osho was trying to normalize the existence of sex in the society. He was not trying to say, okay, you go and break your families, though it was interpreted because there could be, I don't know what happened. But when I read his book, it's not about like breaking the marriage. He talks about sex as the sex itself, like the force itself, without any consideration to marriage or whatsoever. Like what this force is about, it's a very high energy. Like it's a very strong energy. Not everyone is able to handle it. So they said that, okay, they created norms. So I think he dared to, talk about this so forbidden word, like sex. मतलब अगर आज कोई बोल दे, अगर रेस्टोरेंट में कोई सेक्स वर्ड बोल दे, तो सब देखने लग जाएंगे कि अच्छा कौन है.
Crazy, you're right. So tell me, what are the other books you have read and what has inspired you? I mean, because, clearly in your life, you have done such amazing things. What were your inspirations?
I read a book of Kamala Das. It's a memoir, and she wrote it about her life journey of how she was almost raped by her husband on the wedding night. She was not ready. She was underage, and she talked about her sexuality as a woman in herself, like how she felt good about her body. For a lot of times we are not connected with our bodies. We feel like, okay, theek hai, we don't touch our bodies, we don't masturbate. So she talked about her connection with her own body, her unfolding of her, blossoming of her youth. And she also fell in love with her lover. And she said that he had 51 mirrors in that room because he wanted to see her body from every angle. And that was so revelatory for me. Like, my God, like, wow. And she has written this book.
51 mirrors in one room.
I don't know. Yeah, 51 mirrors. So he wanted to see her body from every possible angle. So I think it was very encouraging and daring for her to come up with this first person memoir, and husband stood by her. Like, even though knowing that she has cheated on him, he stood by her. So that was one book in terms of, okay, there is an acceptance. A lot of people are doing it, but she was able to accept it. Second, the book was Anne Frank, the Diary of a Little Girl, Anne Frank, and she wrote it during her stay of Holocaust. And it was a very moving book. Like as a little girl, how positive she was, how hopeful she was that okay, this will get over, and she talked about life. And I think if she can do that in that trying period, I can do it. And this is much easier for me. The world is much easier for me compared to that thing. So that's the second book. And the third book which I'm reading, I would like to mention my own book that I've written. I think yeah. So I'm also coming with a book, Sexes, which is my memoir. And when I look back and I read it, I could actually see a journey, and we need these stories. I think, see, our identities are built by our stories. Like the kind of stories you hear, this is what you end up. Like if your story is okay, there is this servile woman and she is very loving and giving. So we end up living those stories. So I think we need to create new stories. We need to come up with stories which are authentic and which is about living life in its wholesomeness. Like I'm very happy to say that even though I have made some unconventional choices, I'm far more at peace with my decisions and the way I'm able to live my life on my own terms. So this book is about how can you live your life on your own terms. So yeah.
So do you believe in destiny?
Destiny, yeah, I do believe. I sometimes, yes, sometimes I give up. Like I think, okay, after all, I'm just a human. Not everything is under my control, and sometimes I know that okay, you can't get everything your own way. So by that, I believe in that humbleness that you are not you're not invincible. Like you're not invincible. So that keeps me grounded. As such, I don't identify with a certain God or this, but I believe that okay, there is a consciousness, there is a universal consciousness, and I believe in that.
And then, do you believe in luck?
No, I think I have always got things. I've worked hard for them. I do believe that yes, I was seen at the right time. I think if you call that as a luck, like being seen at the right time at the right place, if that is luck, then yes, this is a very appropriate time for me to venture into this completely untapped space. So by that, I would say that yeah, I do have that. The things are favorable from that. Like it's not, I would say, all my hard work. It's simply because there are not enough people. So I got that kind of leverage. Yeah.
And do you have any superstition?
Superstitions, I might be having, no. I mean, no, I don't remember.
You don't remember your superstitions, then you don't have them. Yeah. If you were superstitious, you would definitely remember.
Yeah, I don't. I'm too lazy to follow those superstitions, I would say rather.
What is your favorite story, which you tell everybody?
Okay. Oh, wow. Story, I think I've started loving myself, like loving as in I'm falling in love with myself. I'm very happy. Even though I'm in my late 30s now, I actually see myself getting younger, being more energetic. And I think that's a story I tell everyone about. Like everyone is like, okay, what has it given you? What has this given you? What is that given you? So I say, okay, a lot of times I just felt that, okay, carrying all the expectations and burdens and responsibilities. Now I'm being more self-centered. Even as a mother, I try to keep my time as a woman. So that's the personal story.
And since you are most attracted to yourself, what is the best way for somebody else to attract themselves to you?
Okay. I think I like authenticity. That is a turn on in the sense that authenticity is not about being perfect. Like perfect is boring. We all love those dark shades. We accept it or not, but there has to be something off about the person. It can't be like, okay, he's so flawless and he's so nice every time. So I feel I'm more intrigued by knowing the darker sides of the people, which could be like, okay, it could be anything. It could be an anxiety. It could be just hopelessness, or it could be anger, anything. It could be some secret. So I think I'm more interested on the other side of the story, other side of the coin.
Wow, I'm sure a lot of people now who are going to start thinking about all these other sides of the coin. And of course, they can always reach out to you on your Instagram, Twitter, and of course on LinkedIn and all the other platforms you are on. I think it was, absolutely amazing talking to you. I think we spoke about just so many topics. Yes. I mean, it's so amazing. And Pallavi, I'm so proud of all the stuff you're doing. You are literally breaking the glass ceiling when it comes to this whole subject. And especially now that our societies are going with so many transitions. And I think especially the young people are confused because they no longer have those role models on what they can do and what is right and what is wrong. And clearly, somebody like you is going to be so refreshing as far as new ideas are concerned. So with that, I'd love to thank you again. And of course, whenever your book is coming up, what is the launch date of your book?
It's already launched. It's
already launched. Oh,
yes.
So we should, of course, it's already available on Amazon and other platforms, or it's going to be soon?
Yeah, it's on Amazon.
So let's give a shout out to your book. Your book is called
Sex is, and then there is a dot.
Sex is.
And there is a dot. See.
Okay. Sex is. Okay. So you, everybody out there can just go right now to Amazon and get this book. And Pallavi, it was an absolute pleasure having you on the show, and looking forward to all the exciting things you're going to be doing in your life ahead. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Vishal. Thank you. It was lovely being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that show. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Let me quickly thank our sponsors on the network this week. Storytel, thewholetruthfoods.com, and we have a new sponsor in Syed. Thank you all so much for being part of the network. So, this is Valentine's week, and we have a bunch of stuff for you guys. So I'm going to give you a couple of episodes that you could definitely catch up with. Agla Station, Season 2, Episode 12, Be Our Valentine. Ritasha and Ayushi have a little bit of talk about love and all the rest of the stuff that goes wrong with that. On The Habit Coach, Episode 396, Ashton Doctor did an episode which went into the much-debated origins of Valentine's Day. Also, do check out Candid Kannan with Siddharth Kannan featuring Govinda and his wife Sunita Ahuja. He talks to them about amazing 33 years together. But you know what, folks? If you want to hear more about these Valentine's Day things, what I suggest is go to our webpage, ivmpodcast.com/blog. And on the blog, we're going to post a bunch of different playlists that we've created for all the various major services. So if you're feeling in the mood for love, do check that out. You'll definitely enjoy it. Just a quick note on a few other noteworthy episodes this week. Nankari Kunal Vijayakar was the guest. They spoke about street food with him. On Simplified, they talk about vaccinating 1 billion people, then the logistical and administrative task in front of us. And on the Wire Talk, Siddharth talks to Devdutt Mukhopadhyay about the human cost of internet shutdowns. And with that, I hope to see you again next week.
Whether you're an established sports person or a budding one, or simply a sports enthusiast, join us, Tanvi and Shlok.
We are two passionate pro badminton players talking policy, mindset and everything sport.
So tune in to The Millennial Athlete every Monday.
Only on the IVM Podcast Network.
Trust us, it's gonna be lit.